here. So who are your top 5 recruits that Texas needs to land in this 2026 class after landing the number 1 class for 2025?
Yeah, so you're going to see a bias in a lot of my answers tonight. I've got a couple of lists. And I think for me, the list of 2026 recruits starts and ends with John Turntine, the third from North Crowley. Like, the state of Texas, and we'll see there's another one coming up, but like when you have elite offensive linemen in state, and you're the University of Texas, you've got Kyle Flood as your offensive line coach. You're putting multiple, probably 3 guys in the NFL draft at least this year. Like, that should be a slam dunk recruitment. And that's a guy who, when the guys that are on campus right now graduate, he'll be in his big boy body. He'll be able to step in and really hold down one of those sides of the offensive line. So for me, that list, like as soon as you sent this, the topics, I was like, yep, that's number 1, Turntine out of North Crowley. Got to get him.
Well, this is going to be easy because number 1 for me is also John Turntine, however you pronounce the last name. It does not matter because this is someone Texas has to land. This has been like the guy us Texas fans have known about for like a year and a half of, hey, when this guy comes up, you have to land this guy. Yep. And we're not saying he's going to be Kelvin Banks, but this is the closest thing to Kelvin Banks Texas has had a shot in getting since Kelvin Banks. I think Michael Fasusi might be in that category as well. We'll have to see. But John Turntine is definitely one of those guys, and you have to land him. When they are in your state, you have to reel that guy in. That's actually something Texas struggled with in the 25 class. If I had something to hit Texas on the 25 class, they struggled recruiting the offensive line position in state. I believe Texas had 5 of the top 10 to 12 offensive linemen, and Texas didn't end up getting any of them. So that was a big issue. We have to land this guy. He's a must get, in my opinion.
100%. And that, again, that is the state of Texas when they put out elite offensive linemen. Like, this is a top 20, potentially top 15, top 10 kind of kid. Like, overall, not a position, overall player. When the state of Texas puts out those kids, you've got to land them. Matthew, who's your number 2?
Number 2 is going to be, this is a long shot, but he's so talented. Chris Henry Jr. Okay. He's my number 2. This dude is a freak at wide receiver. Obviously, his dad, rest in peace, played in the NFL, was super talented. Ended up falling out the bed of a pickup truck. I actually think his son was in that car as well. So that's crazy how this has come full circle for him. He's a hell of a football player. He's 6'5", 205 pounds, long, lengthy athlete that can go up and get the football and then can also run. Listen, there's all sorts of guys that can do one or the other. They're long and lengthy. They can go up and get the ball. They can run. It's really rare to find that 6'4", 6'5" guy that can take the top off the defense as well as going up and getting the football. That's this guy. He's out of California. Right now he is an Ohio State commit. Guys, it is so far away from signing day, and with everything we know how it is now in NIL era, that can change very quickly. I think this guy is a must get for Steve Sarkisian. And I will say this, when Sark says someone is a must get, he usually gets them, honestly. I can't really think of anyone that's like, you know what, that guy's a must get. I have to get him, and he doesn't get. So if they do decide this is that guy, which I think it is, I think we end up with him. Time will tell, though.
Yeah, you've got to look at what the again, like you said, if Sark and the staff have tabbed this guy, and Chris Jackson has been an ace recruit. Like, that's one of the things we have to talk about in that conversation. CJ, I did not respect I did not know your game coming in. You have proven us, at least me, proven me wrong at your abilities to recruit. Done a great job. So my number 2, again, showing my bias, and there's some quibbles about offensive line board, but Felix Ojo from Mansfield is another kid who I think Texas has to land. Like, you do not go in state and you're able to have bookends, right? If you can land the top 2 offensive tackles in the state, right, and they're 2 of the top 100, 150 offensive linemen in the country, players in the country, top 20 at their position, right, you can secure the future of your offense for 4 years, right? And so there's some quibbles about other players down the board, bigger sizes. There's a 6'8" kid out there, right? But 6'6", 275, that is a perfect Kyle Flood lump of clay, right? A kid who can come in. And the good thing about the situation in the offensive line room is that he'll come in probably early this time next year, right? If Texas lands him, have a couple of cycles before he needs to step in and get into that grown man body. And so you're able to have multiple, again, you cannot overstate being able to grab bookends that can hold down your line for 3 years, right? We just saw it. Texas had Kelvin Banks and then Cam Williams stepped in last year, right? That is huge, and that's a reason why the offense can be successful.
Yeah, I tried to diversify my portfolio here. Otherwise, I could have put him on the list because he's very good. I think he's a step under John Turntime, but again, those guys are very few and far between.
Yeah.
They're not even every recruiting class.
Yeah, you're right, Matthew. The state of Texas, few and far between on those elite offensive, especially when you've got 2 top 200 offensive tackles in the state. You've got to find a way to land them. You've got to find a way to bring him in. And Matthew's right. I struggle to diversify. I could have a list of just 5 offensive linemen that I want Texas to land, or 5 trench players that I want Texas to land. But as we wait for Matthew to connect back in, I did diversify. I didn't go outside of the borders of the state yet. But my number 3 player on my list, wide receiver Jaylen Lot out of Panther Creek, Frisco High School. 6 foot, 170, number 53 overall in the country, number 6 player in the state of Texas. When you talk about explosive athletes, Steve Sarkisian likes to have athletes with a capital ATH on them, right? This is the kind of kid he's talking about. A junior Olympian champion at the long jump, ran a sub 11-100 as a sophomore. This is the kind of kid, when you talk about take the top off the defense, you look at a type of kid that can really stretch the field and make those explosive plays. Steve Sarkisian wants to have as many Ferraris in the garage as he can, and I don't know if it becomes more Ferrari than this kid. So Jaylen Lot out of Frisco Panther Creek, number 3 on my list. Number 4, keeping it offensive, but finally getting outside of the state. Number 30 player overall, according to the 247 composite, tight end Mark Bowman out of Modern Day High School. 6'4", 6'5", depending on who you ask, 225 pounds. This is the kind of kid who can come in and really continue that pedigree of elite play from the tight end position for Texas. And we've seen how important a good tight end can be in this offense. It is in this offense, right? We saw Jatavian Sanders 2 years ago. Big asset to the offense. We saw it almost even to a greater extent this year with Gunnar Helm, who had a little bit more positional versatility than JT Sanders, because Gunnar Helm can also block, right? So you get a guy like Bowman who's a little more Gunnar Helm than JT Sanders as far as skill set, but a little more talent as far as JT Sanders. So when you get a guy like that out of Modern Day, Texas is building that Modern Day pipeline. So Mark Bowman, tight end out of Modern Day, number 4 on my list. So Matthew, you owe me 2. I need 3 and 4 from you.
Okay, yeah, my laptop decided to restart, so that was awesome. But
Love
number
technology.
3, yeah, I know. Number 3, Tyler Atkinson from Georgia. This is another guy. I don't think it's even about him personally as a recruit. I think he's a really good player, by the way. Can play linebacker or edge. But it's about tapping into that Georgia pipeline once again. I think Georgia is one of those underrated recruiting beds. We've seen that's why Georgia's gotten so well, because they've locked down that state. Usually get out of the top 10 players of that state, they're getting 5 to 6 of them. And that's usually a good hit rate to hit on. And they've gotten so good at producing NFL players out of that state. So that's awesome to get in that state, get that guy. And then also you're getting a hell of a player right now. According to 247, the composite, he's the number 1 rated linebacker in the country. And he's a 4-star right now. That'll get bumped up to a 5-star. So you're talking about another 5-star. Number 4 to me is a Texas legacy, and it's Jaylen Lot.
Here's my number 3.
Oh, okay. Very versatile player, can play either side of the ball. I think he's a little bit more fluid at the cornerback position, or even if you wanted to slide him back to safety. He has really good ball skills, obviously as a wide receiver as well. Really special athlete, and that's what he's listed as. And again, another top 60 recruit, 6 foot, 170 pounds, and he's a burner. So it's going to be very interesting where he decides he wants to play and where Texas wants to utilize him if they can land Jaylen Lot. And this guy's not on my list, but I want to hit on this too. Caden Finley, Jermichael Finley's son. That's another Texas legacy. You can't be missing on legacies, especially when 1, you're hot on the recruiting trail, 2, you're developing players, and 3, you're winning. These should be easy layups, in my opinion, in recruiting.
100%. Yeah, Jaylen Lot going anywhere would be on par with Tom Herman, not on par with losing Quinn Ewers, but that type of how the heck did that happen situation. Now, I actually talk about Jaylen Lot more on the offensive side, so we got a good rounded perspective on him. So I love it. So for me, you want me to close out my list?
Yeah.
Number 5 out of Duncanville, edge Kevin Ford Jr., 6'3", 245, a ton of upside, explosive athlete. I mean, he's not Colin Simmons, right? And we'll just Colin Simmons is a one-of-one freak, right? But when you look at the type of defensive players that Duncanville consistently produces, the way that they play and the level of polish that they bring to the table, this is another guy who could potentially come in, step in, and be a day one kind of starter guy at that edge. Now, the edge room is continuing to get crowded. Praise whoever you choose to praise for that problem, right? But he's a guy, based on the level of development at Duncanville, the level of talent that you have to fight through to get on the field at Duncanville, just his physical stature, 6'3", 245. He could stay outside. He could bulk up and go a little bit more inside. I love that level of versatility. We saw it pay off for Texas with guys like Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, who were recruited as edge players, worked their way down into the interior, and became differentiators for the Longhorns. So that's something to keep an eye on. Kevin Ford Jr., my number 5 must-have.
Yeah, he's a special player and one of those guys, I like what you said, the versatility, and you see that on both sides of the ball. That's what Sark wants to be. He basically just wants to be one perfect unit in which you can interchange pieces very easily, and you can see that with the way Texas played defense last year, and I think you're going to see it even more going into the future. My number 5, this guy's a freak. He's actually, I believe, Kobe Bryant's cousin or nephew, Jet Washington from Nevada. 6'5" safety at 200 pounds and can jump out of the gym. This guy is an athletic freak. I like the pedigree, obviously being related to Kobe Bryant, and I think he'd fit perfectly in this Texas defense. This is a guy, honestly, if he put on enough weight, you could probably spin him down to linebacker if you wanted to. If you want him to stay there, you can put him back out to safety. I think there's in certain packages, you could spin him out to nickel if you really wanted to. So this is a special player. They kind of were slow on this one. I'm going to be honest with you. They got on this one the past couple months. They really weren't on him about 6 months ago. So to me, they have some ground to make up. Johnny Nansen is good at recruiting the West Coast and also Nevada. So I think that will help here. But this is a special kid, and I'm hoping we can land him in this class.
And I love that you mentioned, again, the versatility, the ability. When I hear a 6'2" plus, 200 plus safety, my mind immediately goes to DeMarvion Overshone, right? And what could have been with Tyler Owens, right? Tyler Owens could have just done the DeMarvion Overshone thing and been in the NFL right now. So that to me, I love when those big safeties come in, because if they can't play at safety, tell them to eat a peanut butter sandwich before they go to bed and start them at linebacker the next year. It's beautiful. And I'd love to hear from the chat. Who did we miss? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, 100%. Let us know in the comments who your top 5 are, who your number 1 is. I'm going to be honest, from everything I've seen comments-wise, I think John Turntine is the number 1 piece everyone wants. I think that's the most consistent answer you're going to get. He may not be on your number 1, but he's definitely in your top 5 no matter what. So it's going to be very interesting. Again, if we don't land him, I think heads will explode. And guys, by the way, I don't care where someone, right now, if someone commits to another school that we wanted, there's so much time. We're talking 7 months before these guys have to decide. For the most part, you see them decide in July and August. So I'm really not concerned. And even then, you're a year away from the actual signing day. So I do not care what happens right now.
Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams were committed to Oregon a month before signing day. So let's just keep it a buck.
Yeah, and people don't realize not many coaches got fired this year. I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a lot of coaches fired next year, and that's going to have a lot of impact as well.
Absolutely.
So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe.